Just 2 verses into the Beatitudes, one thing becomes abundantly clear. Jesus intends to upend all expectations. In fact, if you look at the first 4 verses, the words Jesus chooses seem to be intentionally controversial or counterintuitive to the way of thinking of this world. Think about this, these blessed statements he makes. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Poverty, mourning, meekness, hunger. These are not qualities we tend to hold in high regard. The idea that Jesus' kingdom is reserved for these people, his blessing, in fact, the good news he brings is reserved for these kinds of people, that should signal to us immediately that our priorities have been, up to the point of meeting Jesus, entirely wrong. Yesterday, we looked closely at what it means to be poor in spirit, but today, I want us to ask 3 specific questions that follow that poor in spirit. First, what does it mean for us to mourn in the way that Jesus suggests we should mourn? Second, what does Jesus mean by meekness? And finally, what is righteousness and how do we hunger and thirst for it? To answer the first question, we need to look at the overarching story of Scripture. See, God creates the world, and it is very good. Sin enters the world, and as a result of sin, creation is diminished. Illness, struggle, and death become the reality of this world. Those who mourn do so because they recognize that this world is less than God intended it to be. That is the story of Scripture, up until the arrival of Jesus. The blessing that Jesus offers us is comfort for that recognition. God is not sleeping on the problem. He has arrived in Jesus to address it directly. The second question is one of power. Meekness is the ability to humble yourself in the power that exists between yourself and another. When God creates humanity, there is no hierarchy. After the fall, God introduces the first human hierarchy as a direct result. Genesis 3:16 says that the woman's desire will be for her husband, but he shall rule over you. This is God saying it to Eve. Meekness is restraint in power. And those who would put any advantage over another, the power dynamics that result from a broken world, if they would put it aside for the benefit of someone else, they are blessed by Jesus. And they are the ones who inherit the world as God intended it. Finally, we have the question of righteousness. Righteousness has to do with being right, not in the argumentation sense, but in the sense of being properly aligned with God and his will. Sin is what takes us out of alignment with God's will. It bends us out of the shape that God built us into. We don't have the ability to realign ourselves. The tools don't exist. Only the one who made us can bring us back into alignment. Jesus tells us that if we long for this realignment, hunger and thirst for it, at the core of our being, God will satisfy that desire. I pray for you today to be poor, to be hungry, to be mournful and meek. If we aren't, we can't possibly see the need we have for God to change us and to change the reality of this world. If you want the riches of God, his comfort, his restoration of relationships between himself and you and other people, you must lean in to the qualities that he calls blessed.